The Maelstrom Hunter by Crimson QB Sage, Chapter 6, The Emerald Forest, Part 2, Emerald Forest Forecast, Emerald Forest Cliffside, 3rd POV. The last pair has been informed, sir, Glinda said to Ospin as they watched Lai and Nora on their tables. Poor boy, I can possibly imagine those two getting along. Still, he's probably better off than Miss Nikos. Ospin said as he drank his espresso. I don't care what his manuscripts say. That John fellow is not ready for this level of combat. I guess we'll find out soon enough. At their current pace, they should reach the temple within just a few minutes. I guess we'll find out soon enough. At the current pace, they should reach the temple within just a few minutes. Speaking of which, what did you use as relics this year? You'll find out soon enough. What of the unknown Grim? Ospin asked. We're still following it, but none of our instructors on the ground can identify what kind of creature it is, she replied as she tapped on her tablet to show the screen that followed the leech-like creature. Suddenly, as they were watching the creature, it stopped. The leech Grim just stopped right where it was and sniffed the area for a few seconds, then disappeared in a blur, much to the shock of the duo. What was that? Glinda exclaimed. John, what just happened? Ospin yelled at the instructor tasked with following the creature. I don't know, John replied back, sounding quite panicked. It just disappeared. Find it, Ospin retorted, a frown covering his face. This was very troubling. First, there was this unknown Grim that appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Then it just disappeared as they were tracking it. Now, this Grim was loose in the forest where the students were and had just disappeared from their surroundings. With Naruto and Fu. Do you even know where you're going? Fu asked as the duo traveled through the lush green forest. Of course I do, Naruto replied. We're going to the ruined thingies that Professor Ospin told us to go to. And how do you know it's even in this direction? Fu questioned. Because I'm awesome, Tatabayo, Naruto exclaimed, puffing out his chest in pride. That isn't really a good reason, Fu stated, causing Naruto to deflate, his pride slightly wounded. So, do you know anyone else in the academy? Naruto asked, trying to keep the conversation going. Yeah, 3 other people, Fu replied. There's Han Irukama. He may look intimidating because of his height, but he's pretty nice once you get to know him. Then there's Roshi Yamazaru Roko. He's a bit goofy and one hell of a prankster. And finally, there's Blake. She's quiet, but nice and a good person. What about you? You know anyone else in this place? Well, there's John Ark. He's a nice guy, but seems a bit nervous. Then I know Yang Xiaolong. She's a good friend. Just don't mess with her hair. And then there's Ruby Rose. Naruto said that last name with a small but noticeable blush on his face. She's kind, sweet, cute, and a big fan of weapons. This Ruby Rose you speak of. Do you have a crush on her? Fu asked, noticing the blush that Naruto had when he mentioned Ruby's name. Why would you think that? Naruto asked innocently, not noticing the comical sweat drop appear on Fu's head. He's not that dense, is he? She thought, taking another glance at the look of innocence on his face. I can't believe it. He is that dense. Never mind, Fu quickly said, promising to help those two get together. Unknown to her, she was not the only one who was currently trying to get Naruto and Ruby together, nor would she be the last to try. With Han and Roshi, we find that the Jujuriki duo arriving at what was most likely the ruins that Professor Ospin had told them to go to. The area looked like the remains of a rotunda, with 5 stone columns that stood tall, while 4 other columns lay broken and scattered. The floor of the structure bore a symmetrical design. Behind the temple ruins was a stone pillar-lined walkway that led to a staircase that went down a chasm. At the end of the floor's symmetrical design were 24 pedestals, each held either a black or gold chess piece that were in clusters of 2 of the same, one black and the other gold. Huh, you know, I expected this mystery item to be something else, Roshi said to his partner. Well, what exactly were you expecting? Han asked rhetorically. A few jewels and golden idols hooked up to booby traps that involved darts, decapitating axes, and giant boulders, Roshi replied. It was a rhetorical question, Han deadpanned. It was. Never mind. Let's just grab one of these pieces, Roshi said, heading to the nearest pedestal. He grabbed the Black King piece hesitantly, as if expecting a giant boulder to drop out of the sky and drop on him. Seeing as nothing happened when he grabbed the chess piece, he went back to his partner, a smirk plastered on his face. Well, that was a bit anticlimactic, Han said. Yeah, it was, Roshi said. Maybe we should wait and see who else comes along. Sure, good and Sir, sound good? Han replied before the duo leapt into the nearest tree to wait and observe the other students. with Ruby and Weiss. It's definitely this way, Weiss said, walking right, but stopped and started walking left. I mean, this way. It's definitely this way. Alright, it's official. We passed it. Weiss, why can't you just admit that you have no idea where we're going? Ruby asked, slightly annoyed. Because I know exactly where we're going. We're going to the Force Temple, Weiss exclaimed frustratingly, causing Ruby to sigh in frustration as well. Oh, stop it. You don't know where we are either, Weiss countered. Or at least I'm not pretending like I know everything, Ruby retorted. What is that supposed to mean? Weiss asked, getting more and more angry. It means you're a big stupid jerk and I hate you. Just keep moving, Weiss said, walking in another direction. Just keep moving. Hurry up. Watch where you're going, Ruby said in a fox imitation of Weiss's voice, going back to her regular voice. Why are you so bossy? I'm not bossy. Don't say things like that, Weiss exclaimed as she turned around to face Ruby. Stop treating me like a kid, Ruby exclaimed. Stop acting like a kid, Weiss countered. Well, stop acting like you're perfect. I'm not perfect. Not yet, but I'm still leagues better than you, Weiss stated and started walking away. You don't even know me, Ruby said dejectedly. With Yang and Blake coming out of the forest, Yang and Blake stepped into the clearing that held the ancient temple ruins. Moving closer to the temple ruins, they saw the pedestals that held the chest pieces. 5 of the pedestals were missing pieces. Think this is it? Yang asked Blake, causing said girl to give Yang an incredulous look and head down the hill. Yang not far behind. They walked across the floor and observed the items they now recognized as chess pieces. Chess pieces? Blake questioned, confused. Some of them are missing. Looks like we weren't the first ones here, Yang stated, finally noticing that several of the pedestals had missing chess pieces. Well, I guess we should pick one, Blake said. Yang said as she studied the golden knight, picking it up and showing it to Blake. How about a cute little pony? Sure, Blake said, slightly smirking. They walked to the center of the temple floor. That wasn't too hard, Yang exclaimed. Well, it's not like this place is very difficult to find, Blake said as they shared a smile with John and Pyra. John and Pyra looked into the mouth of a dark cave, stalagmites and stalactites littering around the cave. Inside the cave, unknown to the duo, was a cave drawing depicting 2 men. One held a staff with a circle on the top end, and the other held an also familiar sword. Both were apparently fighting a giant beast that was depicted to have 10 tail-like appendages and a single eye. I think this is it, John asked as they entered the cave, moving along with the makeshift torch that John was able to make before they entered the cave. I'm not sure this is it, Pyra said once they were inside the cave. Pyra, I made a torch. Could you at least humor me for, 5 more feet? John said as soon enough the duo came across the cave drawings. You have any idea what these drawings are? John asked his partner. It looks to be 1,000 or so years old, but I don't know what these drawings are supposed to mean, Pyra replied. As the two continued further into the cave, John tripped on the ground, the torch flying out of his hand and into a small puddle, extinguishing the flame so the two were cast in darkness, with only their eyes visible. Do you feel that? Pyra asked as John got up, grumbling. Soul-crushing regret? John said. No, it's warm, Pyra said. The pair continued onwards through the cave until they saw a large glowing point of gold right in front of them, illuminating John's excited features. That's the relic, John exclaimed as he reached out to grab it, only for the object to move away from his sweep. Hey, bad relic! He tried to get it again, then jumps forward and hangs onto it as the object raises him above the ground. Gotcha! He exclaimed as he finally caught the golden object. John? Pyra asked, worried as John's catch lowered itself, so he was dangling in front of the now glowing red lines and eyes of a Death Stalker. With Naruto and Fu. I think this is the right place, Naruto said as they came into the clearing with the ruins of an ancient temple. Hopefully it is, Fu said. The two looked around to see their 2 friends in the center. Oh, hi Yang, Naruto shouted out, waving to Yang. Naruto, good to see you're still alive, Yang shouted back. As Naruto and Fu got closer to the center, Naruto went over to take one of the chess pieces, specifically the Golden King, while Fu went over to talk with Blake. Good to see you still alive, Fu, Blake said, smiling. Right back at you, Blake, Fu said with a similar smile. Hey, Fu, a voice from behind her said. She turned around to see Han and Roshi leaping from a nearby tree onto the ground near her. Han, Roshi, it's good to see you, Fu said at the duo. Suddenly, a girlish scream could be heard from far away, causing all to look in the direction the noise came from. Some girl is in trouble, Blake. Did you hear that? Yang explained to her partner. No, I'm pretty sure that was John, Naruto said with a deadpan look. Are you sure? That sounded like a girl scream, Fu pointed out. Trust me, that was John, Naruto said. With John and Pyra At the cave entrance, Pyro was rushing out right as the large, dark, scorpion-like creature of Grim known as the Deathstalker crashed through the hole, roaring and waving its grass encrusted claws as John hung from its stinger. Help! Whoa! Why, Para, help! Why, Para, this is not the relic. It's not! John exclaimed as he continued sobbing whilst being thrown around. Do something! John, whatever you do, don't let! Before she could finish her sentence, the Deathstalker hurled its tail back and launched the still screaming John across the forest. She could only watch in dismay. Go! Turning back to the creature in front of her, she smiled embarrassedly and rushed away after John, the creature following in pursuit, snapping its claws at the retreating form of Pyra. With Ruby and Weiss. Ruby, I told you this was a bad idea, Weiss exclaimed as they hung from the side of a large, dark bird Grim. We're fine. Stop worrying, Ruby said loudly, trying to be casual about it. I am so far beyond worrying. In a good way? In a bad way? In a very bad way? How did we even get in this situation in the first place? Why don't we just jump? Ruby asked, ignoring Weiss's question. What are you, insane? Weiss said, only to notice that Ruby had already disappeared. Oh, you insufferable little red! With Naruto, Fu, Yang, Blake, Han, and Roshi. Hey, did you hear that? What should we do? Yang said. What are you talking about? Naruto asked, looking up to see a red and black blur falling from the sky, closer and closer. Heads up! The free-falling form of Ruby said, just as she crashed into Naruto. The two fell with Naruto under Ruby. What hit me? Naruto asked, though little Uzumaki swirls in his eyes. Finally shaking the headache he got, he looked up only for his cerulean blue eyes to meet a pair of celestial silver ones. Both Naruto and Ruby were speechless as they gazed into each other's eyes, with a heavy blush on both of their faces. They stayed that way for a good minute, but to them it felt like an eternity. You two lovebirds done yet? Yang teased, said individuals were sputtering to come up with a comeback and got off of each other, their blushes still prominent on their faces and avoiding the other's eyes. It was then and here that the rest of the rookies became part of a betting ring each other, where people would place bets on what those two would hook up. It had yet to happen, but it had become a very big thing behind the duo's back, Yang being the dealer with everyone's betting money. So sorry about that, Ruby finally said to Naruto. It's okay, no big deal, Naruto replied. Suddenly, a blonde blur rushed by through the sky. Hey, John, watch out for that tree! Naruto couldn't finish as John collided with the nearby tree trunk. Suddenly, several crashing noises are heard in the forest ahead of them, and an Ursa comes out, claws swiping, just as a pink blast of energy hits it in the back, and it crashes to the ground, depositing its orange-haired rider. Yeehaw! Nora said, rolling off the creature's back and getting up with a groan. Ah! It's broken, she finished as she dashed onto its neck and observed the carcass as Ren came up from behind her. Nora, please, don't ever do that again, Ren said, panting and leaning on the monster. Looking up again, he noticed the pink dotted outline of where his partner should be and looked to see she had run off again. Oh, Nora said, picking up the golden rook piece. I'm queen of the castle, I'm queen of the castle, she chanted in a sing-song voice whilst dancing around. Nora! Ren exclaimed. Come in, Ren, Nora said, skipping off to her friend. Did that girl just ride in on an Ursa? Blake questioned her partner. Before Yang could finish, she was interrupted by the sound of a screech from their right. Looking to where the sound came from, they saw Pyra running to the temple with the Deathstalker right behind her. John! Pyra exclaimed, seeing her partner up in the tree. Pyra! John exclaimed as well, waving at his partner. Ruby, Yang, Nora, Naruto! Those last two were spoken by said people, interrupting what was supposed to be a hug between sisters. Did she just run all the way here with a Deathstalker on her tail? Blake questioned, Yang getting angry and angrier, bursting into a small fire, her hair splitting into 9 bunches and seemingly defying the laws of gravity. I can't take it anymore. Can everyone just chill out for 2 seconds before something crazy happens again? Yang exclaimed. A small silence was heard as everyone stood awkwardly waiting for Yang to cool down. Ren running over to a ditzy Nora and Blake, Fu, Han, Naruto, Roshi, and Ruby looking up. Yang, Ruby said, tugging on her sister's sleeve and pointing upwards, all followed by where her finger was pointing, to see Weiss hanging on a talon the size of her entire body that belonged to a gigantic Nevermore. How could you leave me? Weiss yelled at Ruby from her position. I said jump, Ruby shouted back. She's gonna fall, Blake pointed out. She'll be fine, Ruby dismissed. She's falling, Ren said. John, having finally recovered from his collision with the tree, looks up to see Weiss falling from the air. Jumping off the branch with his arms outstretched, he caught her in a slow down moment. Just dropping in, John says. Both look down and see that they still haven't touched the ground yet. Oh God, they hang on to each other wide-eyed as their moment of suspense ends and their weapons flying behind them. Oh no! Was John's exclamation before he face planted into the dirt, limbs sprawled out, serving as the perfect landing spot for Weiss as she falls into a seated position on his body. My hero, Weiss said mockingly. My back, John groaned. The Deathstalker is still hunting Pyra, but she managed to land on her side at the feet of the heroes. Great, the gang's all here. Now we can die together, Yang says. Not if I can help it, Ruby says, followed by a battle cry, and charging at the creature followed by Yang, Blake, Weiss, Pyra, John, Nora, and Ren, leaving Naruto, Fu, Han, and Roshi back at the temple. So now what? Naruto said. Suddenly each of the ninja instincts kicked in as they jumped out of the way just in time for a black blur to crash into the spot the four once were and make a small cloud of dust, concealing whatever was attacking them. Naruto, Fu, Han, Roshi. Each of the Jinchuki's respective Biju called out, all of them too surprised at what they were seeing. What kind of, Naruto thought, grim is that? Fu thought. Kit, that isn't a grim, the QB told its container. Then what is it? Roshi thought. That there is, the go-by said. The Raibi, the John B. finished. It's a malevolent spirit created by the dark thoughts and feelings of downtrodden people, the QB said, though the last part about its creation of being a lie, as all the Biju knew that this creature was a failed attempt by it to escape its prison. Guys, we have to take this thing down, Naruto commanded, the others nodding their heads. Naruto grabbing his kurikabacho off his back and got into the Uzumaki offense kata. Fu took out her pair of tonfans and switched them into their twin submachine gun mode and got into a wind cutter kata. Han took his battle axe shotgun weapon off his back and got into a rock smasher kata, and Roshi took out his twin revolver blades and got into Saruiwa kata. They surrounded the rabbi and all at once jumped at the beast. Show me the darkness in your heart, the Raibi spoke before charging at the four Jinchuriki with Itachi and Kisame. Here we find the S-rank criminal duo at the docks of one of the ports near the Oki no Okunote in the lands of waves, having snuck past the sleeping fishermen and into one of the fishing boats. Are you sure we can't hack off a few limbs, Itachi? Kisame asked his partner. We're trying to be stealthy here, so no, we can't, Itachi said. Oh well, I can just hack off other people's limbs later, Kisame said with a grin on his face. The two boarded the fishing boat and set course for their destination, Samihada picking up faint traces of 3-year-old chakra. Unknown to his partner, Itachi silently summoned one of his croaks to be stationed at the docks for the Konoha retrieval team. With Team 7, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, Chio, Gaara, deceased. Here we find what is left of Team 7, Kakashi, Sakura, and a recently reinstated Sasuke fighting alongside Lady Chio of Suna against Sasori and Deidara. Well, the fight was over now. Sasori was dying from the blade that Sasuke used to pierce his only weakness, his heart. Deidara got away, albeit missing an arm or two. Looks like I'm dying, Sasori said as he coughed up a glob of blood. Before I die, I need to tell you something. Say that we're going to take over the world and make peace crap. I've already heard it, Sasuke said. He was able to be reinstated as a genin due to the fact that he is part of a clan and due to the persistent civil side of the council. Sakura, after a harsh scorning and a few smacks from Tsunade, focused solely on her irony career. Kakashi threw himself into his work, focusing on his missions. No, Sasori said, not that, it's something else. He coughed up another glob of blood, indicating his mortal wound. The search for one of our targets has led us to send 2 of our team members across the Oki no Okunote. So what? We sent 2 of your team members to their doom. I don't care, Sasuke said. The team consisted of Kisame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha. That got Sasuke's attention as he still wanted revenge on his brother. The target is the QB Jinchuriki Naruto Uzumaki, and with that and a final cough of blood, Sasori was no longer part of the world of the living. Team 7 was shocked, not by Sasori's death, but by the news of Naruto's whereabouts. Side story. The Maelstrom Hunter Remnants of the Past, Part 2, The Aftermath of the Battle. With the power of the Shinju in her grasp, the battle became one sided. Lightning struck from the skies, trees attacked soldiers, giant tidal waves swallowed their gallons whole. It was as if nature itself was fighting for Kaguya against the Egyptians. Just like that, the battle was over. The Egyptians were easily defeated single handedly by Kaguya, and peace reigned once more. To further the ties between their two nations, Princess Kaguya and King Arthur were wed. It wasn't just for the political ties, as the two had fallen in love, and eventually they had two children, one by the name of Haguramo Otsutsuki, who took on the last name of his mother, and the other by the name of Julius Ark, who took on the last name of his father. Unfortunately for the royal family, things would soon take a turn for the worst, for the great fruit had fallen from the tree will eventually rot, for humanity had yet to have the power of the gods in their grasp. They had yet to experience the power, the knowledge, the joy, the sorrow, the pain, the greed, the envy, the corruption that powers brings unto them, for humanity had yet to feel the power of the infinite Tsukuyomi, the power of the Shinju. Side story end. End of chapter 6.